Well, welcome to our friends from Alpena and Onaway Healthy Connection groups, and anyone who else may be joining us right now or will be watching this video later on. Welcome to my family room. The date today is March 25th. I say the date because in the middle of this pandemic, things are changing day to day. And what we say tomorrow about what we know about this pandemic and what the recommendations are today may change tomorrow as things evolve. So I like to say the date so anyone who's watching this at a later time can take what we say in light of what we know at this moment. Also want to give a little disclaimer that what we're sharing tonight is not specific medical advice for you. It is lifestyle and health education, and we're asking that you take what you hear and see and intelligently apply it in your situation. You may have medical conditions that you're under care for a physician for and need to check with your physician before you implement some of our suggestions. Those of you who watched Dr. Kelly's presentation last night, he showed this infographic on lifestyle choices to boost immunity. Very, very good information on this. We do have this available. I had Dr. Kelly send it to us. We have this available. We also have handouts with detailed instructions on the information that we are presenting tonight and tomorrow night. And if you would like to get any of that information, you can go ahead and message us on our Facebook page, Alpena Healthy Connections, or else you can text your email or your questions to 269-767-2000. That's if you want us to email you the PDF files for the handouts. Go ahead and text your email and we will get them sent to you. Again, that can be done on our Alpena Healthy Connections Facebook page or to 269-767-2000. Tonight we're covering simple and effective home strategies. My name is Sharon Shinkowski, and I am the Health Ministries Director for the Alpena Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I also assist the Health Ministries Department at the Onaway Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm a physical therapist. I've spent much of my career in traditional healthcare settings as a physical therapist, but I've also had the opportunity to work at a residential lifestyle clinic, which was just an amazing opportunity and learning experience for me. But even more significant than my professional experience has been my experience with using simple natural remedies for preventing and treating disease in my own home. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and the things that I can do for my family and for myself using the simple things that God has given us have been a tremendous blessing. And that's what I'm here to share with you tonight. The things that I have learned that have worked for us that have no side effects. Safe, simple strategies. In the midst of this pandemic, we don't need to panic. We can be proactive and we can be prepared. We don't need to be helpless. We can be hopeful instead. We can be confident in the midst of this chaos. Fear occurs when we don't know what to do. And we want to help you with that. There are things that you can do. And when we know what to do, we don't need to be fearful. The things that you can do include things that will improve your immune system, things that will decrease the severity of the disease if you do catch the disease. And did you know that you can be infected with a virus and never show any signs of the illness, but yet have your body still develop antibodies against that disease? We know this to be absolutely true with COVID-19. Many people have been exposed to the virus, have been positive for the infection, but have never had any symptoms. Their immune status at the time of infection and shortly after the exposure to the infection seem to be a key factor. And this is where we're currently at. The things that we can do are things that will help us when we are exposed and to catch the illness early on, to either show hopefully no symptoms or only mild to moderate symptoms. So there are 4 strategies that we can address, 4 approaches that we can take personally, things that you and I can do in light of this COVID-19 pandemic. The first strategy that we can all implement is to avoid or limit our exposure to the virus. These are the things that you have been hearing over and over again about hand washing, about not touching your face, covering your cough and your sneeze, disinfecting surfaces, social distancing, and now we're on the second day of our stay home, stay safe order here in the state of Michigan. So that's the first strategy, is to limit your exposure to the virus. The second strategy is to enhance and improve your immune function so that when you are exposed to the virus, your body is primed to fight it. We know that this is a key factor with the novel coronavirus. The third strategy that we should implement is enhancing the function of every body system, because if we do catch the illness, we want our body to be primed, every system of our body, to be ready to heal from disease. And these 2 strategies, increasing our immune function and improving the function of every body system, is going to be the key benefit of the treatments that we're going to show you tonight that you can do. Fourth strategy that you can implement are things that decrease the ability of the virus to survive. Once the virus has entered your body, what can you do to make sure that virus has a miserable and short lifespan? Now, the strategies that we're going to be sharing are strategies that have proven effective in previous viral epidemics. A good example is the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic. Perhaps you have been hearing about that recently. There's a lot of comparisons between our current pandemic and the Spanish flu of 1918, 1919. In fact, I've learned a whole lot more about that epidemic in the past week than I've ever known in my entire life. Now, the strategies that we're looking at proved effective in that epidemic, and these were strategies or gifts that were given to the human race at the time of creation. We're going to use simple things that God has provided for us, things that He provided to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. So, what are some of these things that we can do? Well, one of the most effective things that we can do is to manage our stress. Our immune system is very, very tied to our stress levels. Once stress hormones in the body begin to rise and stay elevated, the immune system function decreases sharply. So here I am telling you, in the midst of a chaos in our society, to not stress, right? Well, there are stressors, and we can't change all our stressors. We're in the middle of a pandemic. There's a lot of stressors. What will happen with our health? What will happen with our family? What about our finances? How about those plans that were interrupted? And I'm not just talking about plans, to go to the park. What about the plans for family vacations that you spent a lot of money on? Plans for weddings, plans for graduations. Very, very difficult things that we're facing. Those are the stressors. But we can respond to stressors in different ways. There are different ways to manage the stressors. And I want to go through some of the ways that we can help to have good stress management. There are 2 kinds of stress. First, we call passive stress is when we have a helpless mindset. We're faced with stressors. We feel helpless to do anything about it. We're fearful because we don't know what to do. This is a destructive kind of stress. As our stress hormones rise and stay at a high level, it strains and wears on every body system until something finally wears out or gives up and breaks down. And unfortunately, our immune system is one of the systems that's function tanks very quickly when stress hormones are elevated. So passive stress, where we don't know what to do, where we feel helpless, is very destructive. But active stress, on the other hand, is when we do something to actively address the stressor. We're proactive, we're productive, we take the circumstances that we can control and we control them, we do something about them, and we choose not to be a victim to the circumstances that we can't control. And this kind of stress, this active response to stress, actually increases the function of the immune system. So in the midst of this pandemic, we each have a choice. What are we going to do with our stress? Are we going to let it take down our immune function, put us at higher risk for disease, for significant disease, or are we going to do something about managing our stress in a positive way that will actually increase our immune function? I'm going to give you quite a few different ideas for how you can actively manage your stress in a positive way. First of all, we all get to choose the mindset that we're going to have. Are we going to be grateful and optimistic, although realistic as well? And are we going to focus on other people, serving others and being a blessing to others? Or are we going to be complaining and pessimistic, helpless and self-centered? How we choose to think determines where our stress level goes. Trust in God. That is the best place to take your stress. I want you to know that we have a God that is with us through every uncertainty. When there's financial problems, when there's situations we can't see past, He can, and He is with us. Even if I become seriously ill with COVID-19, my God will be with me, and He will walk with me through every stressor. That is the best stress management. Bible study, prayer, singing spiritual songs, absolutely wonderful ways to manage your stress. And remember, everything that manages your stress improves your immune function. Having good social support, stay in contact with people. We're in a stay home, stay safe order, but what can you do? Figure out what you can do to stay connected with people. Use your phone, use technology, connect with those who are with you in your home if you don't live alone. Figure out how you can be a blessing to others, even if it's from a distance. I had a very enjoyable, short but enjoyable conversation with some people I don't know who were walking down my street today. I was out getting this table out of my RV, and they were walking down the road. Probably they normally wouldn't have had a conversation with someone in yard, but because we're so disconnected, everyone has a desire to connect. And we were a blessing to each other by having a very loud conversation across my yard from a safe social distance, I want you to know. Okay, forgiveness is another good stress management technique. I want you to know that harboring unforgiveness is one of the worst things that you can do for your immune system. It contributes to probably the most stress-related illness of any stressor that we could have. Whether you're having a difficult time extending forgiveness to somebody, or whether you're having a hard time accepting forgiveness that was extended to you. My friends, if you're in that situation where unforgiveness is a problem, I ask you to commit yourself to working through that process. Seek someone who can help you, walk you through that from a counseling perspective, and more importantly, from a spiritual perspective. Reach out to myself if that would be helpful. Reach out to our church if we can be of help to you. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us contact information on our websites for either the Alpena or the Onaway Seventh-day Adventist churches. We want to be a blessing to you. So if we could be of help, give us that opportunity. Again, moving into things. Remember, we're talking about stress management that improves our immune function, because that's what we need in the midst of a pandemic, is a top-notch functioning immune system. Being involved in productive activities. My friend, don't spend your time during this pandemic, during your time in social isolation. Don't spend your time on screens. That increases stress levels. Limit your screen time. And don't obsessively track the COVID-19 news. That becomes another stressor. Do positive things. Spend time outdoors in nature. That's restorative. Be involved in arts, crafts, music, things that are productive and uplifting. Decrease the clutter in your life and in your environment, whether it's physical clutter or noise clutter or emotional clutter. That will help in your stress management. Learn to do a new skill. I just saw today that there's some place online that's offering free guitar and ukulele lessons. There's a lot of free options online. People want to help other people during this pandemic. So there may be something out there that you can take advantage of learning a new skill. Connect with other people and look for ways that you can be the one that's being a blessing to someone else. Physical activity, a stress reliever. It's a great way to manage stress, is to be involved in physical activity, and it's a huge boost to the immune function. It's even better, more beneficial, if you can do that physical activity outdoors. You've got the synergy of sunlight, fresh air, and the outdoor activity, and the being in nature. All of those work together to make it a powerful boost to your immune system and a powerful way to manage your stress. Right now, outdoor walking and yard work are great things for us to be involved in. The governor's order for staying at home does have an exception for outdoor exercise. So if you're going out to do outdoor exercise, as long as you're staying more than the 6 feet distance between you and others who do not live in your same household, you are free to leave your home for outdoor exercise according to my reading of the governor's order. Let's see what else. Well, sunlight. We've mentioned it. Sunlight improves our well-being. It helps us manage stress. We know this. We do better on a sunny day. We feel better on a sunny day. And our immune system functions better. Sunlight is also antiviral. Sunlight will kill viruses that's on our skin, that's on clothing, bedding, anything that we place out in the sun. The sunlight will kill viruses on those surfaces. The fresh air also improves our mental clarity, elevates our mood, helps us to manage our stress better, and improves the function of our immune system. There are benefits to having fresh air circulating in your home. Fresh air actually increases the action of the body's killer cells. Killer cells are exactly what they sound like. Those are the body cells that are designed to go out, find, and kill anything that does not belong in the body, including bacteria and viruses, including the novel coronavirus. So get fresh air, crack your window open in your bedroom, and enjoy that fresh air. More stress management and immune boosting activities or strategies. Getting adequate sleep and rest. Immune function and stress management are both vitally dependent on getting enough sleep. Dr. Wes Youngberg reported a research study that found that staying up 2 hours later than your bedtime results in your immune function being decreased by 50% the next day. 50%. That's huge, isn't it? And during a pandemic, none of us can afford to have a 50% decrease in our immune function. So, as challenging as it may be, I struggle with it. We need to work our best to incorporate all of these strategies. Drinking enough water, being well hydrated, absolutely essential for brain function. Being well hydrated increases our mental clarity, our judgment, and our ability to manage stressors. And it is vital for our body to have good circulation in order that every body system is ready to fight disease, to fight infection when it's needed. And we're also going to discover tonight and tomorrow night that water is a key tool that we can use to decrease the survivability of a virus, and to improve our immune function. You're going to be thrilled with what we share with you in ways that we can use water to treat and to prevent illness. Now, we want to be clear when we're talking about hydration that pure water is the best liquid for us. It is really the only liquid that our body needs. When you're trying to hydrate, liquids that have either chemicals or nutrients in them require the body to use water in order to process them. So we lose some of the water when we take in liquids that have chemicals or nutrients in them. I want you to especially be careful of caffeinated beverages. Caffeine actually increases stress hormones. That's what gives you that buzz, okay? It is putting your body on high alert by increasing the stress hormones. Not a good thing for our immune function. It suppresses immune function. So be very, very careful with caffeinated beverages or caffeine in any form. Alcohol also is a depressant to immune function. So I know I've been told that the store shelves are a little bare in that beverage department. Friends, staying at home and indulging in alcoholic beverages is not going to help your immune function. Now we're going to come back in just a few minutes and talk about water therapy or hydrotherapy and how it can be used to prevent and treat illnesses. But first I want to talk with you about nutrition. Dr. Kelly talked about it last night. He talked about the fact that we need those plant antioxidants and phytochemicals that are found in plant foods in order to boost our immune function. Think about it. These are the same foods that are cancer protective for the very same reason. They protect us from cancer because they improve our body's immune function so our body's immune system can fight off and destroy cancer cells as well as bacteria or viruses, including our current enemy, the novel coronavirus. So some of those high antioxidant vegetables, garlic. And garlic is also antiviral, so that's a good news. It helps kill off viruses. So garlic, kale, Brussels sprouts, spinach, broccoli, all of those fall very high on the scale with antioxidants. Some of the fruits that are very high in antioxidants would include berries, plums, oranges, red grapes, kiwi. Anything with deep color also has deep phytochemicals and significant amount of antioxidants. Dr. Kelly talked last night about some of the vitamin, mineral, and antioxidant supplements that are helpful to the immune system as well. And those are very helpful when we're in the midst of a pandemic and we each are very much aware that we need to maximize the function of our immune system. We're in an emergency situation and we should use every tool that we have at our disposal. I want you to resist the temptation, though, to think that these supplements are the magic bullet, that this is what you need to get to be able to avoid the COVID-19. The challenge with thinking this way is that most of us find it easier to buy and take a supplement than to implement all of the lifestyle improvements that I've talked about. And supplements should never take the place of a good lifestyle. They can never replace a good lifestyle. The other challenge is that many supplements are not readily available to us right now. If you've tried to go to a pharmacy to find any of them, the shelves are bare of what people think will help them right now. Even if you try to order them online, you may have tried, but shipping is really delayed in getting any of those items. A lot of these items are out of stock, even on places you can order them online. So my friends, I don't want you to feel defeated if you can't find some of those things, because that's not the only thing you can do. That's just an adjunct to the main things that you can do. And the main things that you can do is to use all of those lifestyle strategies in combination When you combine them, they become even more powerful. This is called synergy, where the combined benefit of all of these strategies is greater than the sum of them if you had just done them individually. So do everything you can. Put all of these principles into practice in your life to boost your immune system to the highest level possible, to prepare yourself, to prepare your family for exposure to this virus. Just another comment about our diet and our immune system. I want you to be aware that sugar significantly decreases the activity of your white blood cells. Just drinking a 12-ounce serving of a soft drink can decrease the amount of bacteria that your white blood cell can destroy by half. Okay? A white blood cell with no sugar can destroy about 14 bacteria. It takes it down to around 7 after a 12-ounce soft drink. And the effect lasts for 5 hours. The challenge with us as Americans is we're taking in a sugary snack or some kind of dessert just about every 5 hours. So you can see that every time we are taking that in, we are tanking the ability of our white blood cells to function for 5 hours at a time. This is something that we can't afford in the midst of a pandemic. So I'd like to encourage you that this is a good time to avoid sugar, and we're talking about refined sugars here. One other lifestyle factor that may be an issue, smoking and vaping. I guess it should go without saying that anything that damages our lungs, like smoking and vaping, puts us at very, very high risk for lung disease, for lung infections. COVID-19, the biggest challenge, the problem that's causing severe medical problems and death is a lung issue. So my friends, if that's something that you're involved in, I encourage you to work on stopping that at this time in order to decrease your risk of severe respiratory illness. So let's talk a little bit about this SARS-CoV-2 virus. This novel coronavirus that is causing the COVID-19 disease. This virus enters the body, like most viruses do, through the mouth, the nose, or the eyes. That's the entrance way for most viruses into our body. Now, you've seen the pictures of the coronavirus with all those little spikes on it. Those are proteins that are on the outside of the virus, and those proteins are what attach it to the cells that are lining our respiratory tract. Okay? So in our nasal passageways, our sinuses, down our throat, down into our bronchioles, into our airway, and down into our lungs. When it first comes in, of course, it's first going to affect up in the upper part of the respiratory tree, the respiratory system. And so this is when people experience sometimes a sore throat or a sinus headache, stuffy nasal passageways, sometimes a runny nose. These are the kind of symptoms that come early on. The irritating of the lining of the throat area sometimes triggers that cough, that dry cough that goes along with this infection. And also sometimes people experience a mucus in the throat. Not always sore throat as much as it's just mucus in the throat. All of those are signs that a virus of some sort has set up in your upper airway. And there's a reason why viruses like that upper airway. Viruses don't survive really well at high temperatures, so they set up in that the airway, the respiratory tract, because that's the coolest area of the body. We're constantly breathing in air that's cooler than our internal body temperature, and so that's the coolest area of the body, and that's the place where these viruses can thrive the most. When the virus attaches to the cells in the lining of your respiratory tract, they hijack the body cell and cause the body cells to replicate more viruses. So our respiratory lining becomes a SARS-CoV-2 virus factory. Okay, just producing more and more of the viruses. As the disease progresses, if we do not arrest it or if our body is not able to halt it at that place, it continues to go down into the cells lining the lungs. And then when the body gives off the byproducts of inflammation and infection down in the lungs, it fills up those little air sacs and makes it so we can't get oxygen down into those sacs and can't get oxygen into the lungs. This is what causes the serious acute respiratory syndrome that requires hospitalization, and this is what's leading to the deaths that we are seeing. But what if there was something that we could do to stop the disease from progressing to the lungs? How about when it first sets up in the upper part of the respiratory lining? How about if we could stop it then? Now, I want to tell you that our healthcare system does not have strategies for us to do that yet. Given enough time, researchers are likely to come up with some pharmaceutical agents that will be helpful. And probably at some point in time, they're going to come up with a vaccination. But at this time, that's not available to us. That's why what we're sharing with you tonight is so important, because we can teach you some things where you can take care of it yourself. Now, I want you to know that I deeply respect the healthcare system that I'm a part of. And while I recognize that our hospital staff are working very hard and putting themselves in danger to care for the seriously ill, I don't expect them to take care of things that I can take care of myself. In fact, currently they don't have enough information about this new virus. They don't have enough manpower. They don't have enough resources. We know all about that. We hear that in the news. I know about that from my work. We don't have the resources or the testing kits to be able to take care of all of us. So we, as individuals, as families, need to take as much responsibility as we can for ourselves and let our health care providers take care of those who are serious and in critical conditions. So we need to take responsibility for decreasing our risk of exposure. Follow the guidelines that have been given so that we decrease our risk of exposure and decrease the risk that we might expose someone else to the virus. We need to take responsibility for preparing our own immune systems for the likely exposure. We need to take responsibility for managing the symptoms of mild or potentially moderate disease ourselves. And we're going to teach you some things tonight that are going to help you be able to do that. Both tonight and tomorrow night, we're going to teach you those things. Okay? We need to take responsibility for providing care for our family members when they're experiencing mild to moderate disease. Now, if we get sick enough, then we will use our healthcare system and we will use it gratefully for all that they're doing for us. But until we get to a point where we need that, let's do everything that we possibly can to take care of ourselves and to prevent ourselves from getting to the point that we need their help. If we have the right information, we can be empowered to use the gifts that God has given us to help our families, to help ourselves, to help our communities to make it through this crisis, working together. That's why we do the monthly Healthy Connection meetings that we do. That's why we're providing this series of seminars at this critical time, even though we have to do it from our own homes to you in your own homes. We want to pass on hope. We want you to know that there are things that you can do. In addition to the lifestyle strategies that we've already covered, those things that you can do, your physical activity, you're drinking your water, you're eating healthy, getting sunlight and fresh air. In addition to those, there are some very practical things that we can do with supplies that you probably already have in your home. I don't want to give you things to do that you have to run out and go shopping to get things to do. I want to give you primarily things that you can make do with what you already have in your home. Most of what we're going to show you has to do with using God's good gift of water. Water, it's inexpensive, it's readily available, it's powerful medicine when we know how to use it. And we're going to teach you how to use it in a powerful way. So we're going to talk about water therapy, or also called hydrotherapy. But before we start showing you some of the techniques, it helps if you know how water affects the body. We talked a little bit about the importance of drinking sufficient water, but did you know that water is also powerful when we use it outside of our bodies? It's powerful medicine. We already understand, and we've talked about the importance of cleanliness. Cleanliness is a major component in preventing illness. We've heard a lot about hand washing and cleanliness. A very, very important form of hydrotherapy, if you will. Water is also ideal for transferring heat and cold to the body. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Water used on the outside increases blood circulation and lymph circulation. Water used on the outside can promote the body to destroy and eliminate toxins more effectively. Another important strategy for eliminating disease and injury. It increases the metabolism, or our body producing what it needs for healing. And here's a powerful one. Water on the outside can increase the formation of red blood cells and white blood cells, two vital components necessary for healing. Our red blood cells take oxygen to every part of our body, which is important for fighting off infection and important for healing damaged tissues or infected tissues. And our white blood cells, those are our warrior cells. That's our immune system cells that are in circulation throughout the body. They are the ones that find and destroy the viruses and other foreign bodies in our system. Water used on the outside can be used to stimulate the immune system. And so these are some of the ways that water or hydrotherapy can be specifically used in order to prevent disease and also to promote healing if we do become ill. Now, the temperature of the water that we use on our skin and the actual mechanical stimulation of the water against our skin both contribute to the benefits that we find. We talked about the fact that water is effective for transferring heat and cold to the body. If you remember from your science class, water has a very high specific heat, which just means it transfers heat or cold much more effectively than just about any other substance that we know of. There's only a couple substances that have a higher specific heat than water. And we actually know this because cold water or cool water feels much colder than air of the same temperature. Think about it. We're fairly comfortable in a air temperature of 65 degrees, but we would be hard-pressed to be very comfortable in a bathtub full of 65-degree water. 65-degree water feels very, very cold to us. A bathtub of 112 degrees would be quite hot to us, whereas an outdoor temperature of 112, it doesn't feel as hot against our skin. So again, we see that water is perfect for transmitting heat and cold to the body, and we're going to find out how to use those effects. But let's talk about what we already know about heat and cold and how they affect living systems before we talk about hot and cold water applied to the body. I want you to think about how a lizard moves in cold weather compared to how a lizard moves in hot weather. Very slowly in cold weather, very rapidly in hot weather. Okay? I want you to think about why we put food in a cold refrigerator. We're trying to prevent it from spoiling, right? And spoiling happens when organisms are active and cause it to spoil. So putting it in cold decreases the action of the organisms. And why do we place eggs in a warm incubator? Because warmth promotes life and the chicks will hatch, or the eggs will hatch. So we already know that cold slows down all life functions. And heat or warmth increase life functions. So knowing this, we can start exploring what effects heat and cold, or hot and cold water, have on the body. Now, when we put cold water on our skin, the blood vessels underneath the skin have an immediate reaction. They want to preserve body temperature, so immediately those small blood vessels underneath the surface of the skin close down. They constrict in order to decrease the blood flow at the surface of the skin so the body doesn't lose its heat to the cold that's on the skin. So that's the initial response when cold is applied to the body. We rarely use prolonged cold as a treatment because it decreases body functions, and that's generally not what we're after. So that's the downside of cold. If we put cold on that's only brief, our body has a secondary response. When the cold goes on initially, the blood vessels constrict, narrow down to decrease the blood flow to the skin. But after our body realizes that the cold was only brief, or it's a limited amount of cold, then those blood vessels open back up to warm up that area of the body. Okay? So brief cold applications, contraction of the blood vessels with decreased blood flow, followed by dilation of the blood vessels and increased blood to the area. All right, how about hot water? When we treat with hot water, as soon as it comes in contact with the skin, those blood vessels under the surface of the skin open up wider because they are trying to prevent the body from overheating. So they're opening up to give off heat so that we don't overheat. So hot water on the skin increases circulation. It's extremely stimulating to the system, and it's also used to treat pain and muscle spasms as well. But today we want to focus primarily on the effect that it has on circulation. Now, hot and cold water are not our only options. There's another powerful method of using water for treatment, for hydrotherapy, and that's alternating our hot and our cold water. And we're going to look at some of that tonight. When we alternate between hot and cold water in a hydrotherapy treatment, we get the benefits of both the heat and the cold without the disadvantages of either one. So we don't get the congestion and swelling that we can get from heat alone to an area, and we don't have the decrease in function that we have with cold alone. We get the benefits of both without the disadvantages of either one. It also stimulates every body system to function better. And we talked about this is exactly what we want to do in preparation for our exposure to the novel coronavirus and the potential that we could contract the disease. We want every body function to be at max capacity in order to be prepared to fight and to heal from a potential infection. So alternating hot and cold water treatments increase the metabolism, they increase circulation, they increase the body's breaking down and getting rid of toxins. It increases the red blood cells in circulation by 20 to 35%. That means the ability of your blood to carry oxygen to every part of your body has increased by 20 to 35% just as a result of doing a full body hot and cold treatment. And even more exciting than that is what it does to the white blood cells. An alternating hot and cold water treatment increases white blood cells, which are the ones that fight infection, by 200 to 300%. You can double to triple the amount of white blood cells circulating in your body. Now that sounds like a strategy for addressing our COVID-19 pandemic, doesn't it? Preparing your body, having those white blood cells in circulation at the ready to attack, destroy, eliminate any exposure that we might have to the virus. And we're going to talk about how you can do some of that. All right, I need to get this plugged in preparation for one of the demonstrations we're going to be doing in just a few minutes. Okay, so we already mentioned that hand washing can be considered a form of hydrotherapy. And I had initially planned to demonstrate proper hand washing technique tonight in this presentation, but Dr. Kelly last night shared with you a how to find a YouTube video that about hand washing. I went and I watched that video on his recommendation last evening. It was done very well. Their videography is better than what we could do. And so I'm going to let you go and watch that YouTube video. I did post it on our Alpena Healthy Connections Facebook page, so it is linked there. If you're not on Facebook, you could go back and watch Dr. Kelly's presentation, and he will tell you how to find that YouTube video in that presentation. But take a look at that. Make sure you're doing a good job with your hand washing. All right, so next, hydrotherapy treatment. We talked about the fact that viruses like the cool environment of our upper airway. And so if we want to decrease the survivability of the viruses in our upper airway, how about we do some of the things that we can do to make it a hostile environment for the viruses, okay? And the way we can do that is by adding heat to that environment. So when we're thinking about our throat area, we know that we can help decrease the survivability of the viruses. We can help kill off some of the viruses just by drinking hot water, by that hot water passing down our throat. So when you're ill, before you're ill, it's a good idea to drink some hot water. Morning on rising is a good time. Your GI system actually likes warm or hot water better in the morning than it likes cool or cold water anyways. I think you'll find it's a nice wake up for you. It rinses the GI tract, but what we're focusing on right now, more importantly, is what it does to the viruses that we may have been exposed to that are trying to set up camp and make their little virus factory going on in our throat. I like to take and heat up 2 cups of water every morning, and I like to drink. I like to have it hot enough that I can't really guzzle it, but at a temperature that I can still get it down in not too lengthy of a time. I don't want it to cool too much before I'm able to get it down. And I find that if I put it in my insulated mug, that it stays at a temperature that I like it to be at for a longer period of time. If I put it in a regular open mug, I often find that it cools down faster than I want it to. So drinking hot water, absolutely wonderful for taking care of those viruses early on before they get to moderate or serious disease or illness. If you don't like hot water, then I just encourage you to add an herbal tea bag to it. Again, we don't want to do caffeinated teas because of their decrease to the immune function. But if you do some herbal teas, if you find that easier to get down hot liquids, add some lemon slices to your hot water. Any of those things will help. And so you've got if the hot going down, destroying the viruses, also just the mechanical action of the water going down flushes out the viruses. So if you're at a place throughout the day, if you are still going to work, if you're one of our important essential employees that we want to salute and thank you for what you're doing, and don't have hot water available throughout the day, drinking water of any temperature will help you as well. Hydrates the system. A well-hydrated system fights off disease and heals better than a dehydrated system. All right, perfect timing here. My steam kettle over there sounds like it's just starting to boil. Another strategy that we can do to decrease the survivability of viruses in our upper airway before they become a serious problem is steam inhalation. We can breathe in steam. The heat from the steam will soothe any irritated passageways that we have. It will increase the circulation to our respiratory lining in order to help it to heal and fight off infection. And it will also, the heat itself will help again to destroy or stunt those viruses. And so we're going to show you some things that you can do for steam inhalation. Those who need to be careful with using this treatment are going to be the extremely young children or the very elderly. They would want to be very, very careful and possibly avoid using these. You want to be careful to avoid burns. Steam will cause burns, especially if you come in contact with the steam directly over the source. Those who have severely compromised cardiovascular systems, those with congestive heart failure, those with COPD, asthma, other respiratory problems, often find that the steam-laden air is hard for them to handle, hard for them to breathe, and so this may not be appropriate for some of those. Although some people with asthma actually report that the steam improves their breathing. So it's not always consistent with everyone with asthma. Some people it's difficult for them, other people it's helpful. Okay, so I'm going to get my supplies and we're going to do a demonstration of inhaling steam as a form of hydrotherapy. Now, if I was doing this with a child, I would probably not do it over an open boiling pot or over a boiling kettle like this, just because of the high risk of burns. I would probably preheat a container that has a narrow opening, pour the boiling water in there, and then they could then take a towel. You could take a towel, make a tent over the top of their head to capture some of that steam, and then they could have their face over top of the open area of the container and breathe in the steam coming off with that. You may have to frequently refresh the water in there to keep it hot enough to be steaming, but that would be the safer method for a child. Okay, steam can just be breathed in continuously. You've probably heard of using steam from steaming up a bathroom for a child with croup. Okay, so you can breathe steam consistently for a period of time. If you're just doing a treatment with steam, you're probably going to want to keep it anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes that you're doing it, taking breaks in between as needed. You can just do the steam inhalation to get the heat and the moisture into your sinuses, your nasal passageways, and down into the upper area of the respiratory tree. Or you can do alternating hot and cold. And this is kind of a fun way that my husband and I have been using as we've dealt with some illness over the past couple weeks. We have both used this method and have actually enjoyed it. So you can, what you want to do is, because you don't want to be right over the steam, you can use a paper cone, you can make a tent with a towel over your head, you can make a tent with an umbrella and a towel that brings it over to you for a little bit more intense treatment. You can actually take something solid. I'm going to use a baking sheet here to divert the steam over towards your face. So I'm going to take this and I'm just diverting the steam over so it's blowing right up into my face and I can breathe in the steam here. It's actually very soothing to the sinuses, the nasal passageways. Down the throat, breathing in deeply. Okay, primarily breathing in through the nose, but I have also found that when I have a cough in the upper chest, that breathing in through the mouth actually gets some of that, feels like it gets it down into there and helps to loosen up some of that congestion in the upper chest as well. So you probably want to do some, both breathing through the nose, breathing through the mouth. You notice it's also getting heat to the face over top of the sinus area. After you do this, you'll notice that your face will be red and healthy looking. Circulation has increased into this area where you need increased circulation to deal with the infection and to promote healing. So we're doing a number of things with this. After about 3 minutes of breathing in this steam, if you're going to do the alternating hot and cold, you can move away from your steam. You can take a washcloth. I've got a bucket here with ice water. It actually has, you can probably hear the ice in there, actually has ice cubes floating in the water, so it is quite cold. And you can take that wet, cold washcloth, put it over top of your face, over the nose and mouth area where you had steamed it. Okay. You can turn it over. It's colder on the other side. You've warmed up one side, the other side. Hold that or pat it or rub it. Okay, whatever feels comfortable to you to that area. Cool it off. Okay, you want to be about in the neighborhood of 20, 30 seconds with the cold, and then go back to your steam for 3 minutes, followed by the cold. Okay, you're going to want to do that at least 3 repetitions. 3 is the minimum number that you should do with an alternating hot and cold treatment of any kind. They actually find that you get the most benefit in the first 3 repetitions. You can continue it beyond that. I often do when I'm sick or when I have any upper respiratory symptoms going on, just because it feels so good. You'll find it soothing, and remember, the best news for us today in our current circumstances is it's waging war on that novel coronavirus that's trying to set up camp and create a virus factory in your airway. So that's our steam inhalation. Oh, one other little gem here. We find the steam kettle or just a pot on the stove with the baking sheet to be a fairly easy, water drop on my glasses, to be a fairly easy way to do the steam. But we also do have this personal steamer. You set it on the bathroom counter, you put some water in it, put it up to your face, and breathe in the steam. It's vented, so you're not getting the steam directly off of it. It has adjustable flow on the steam. My husband feels like this gives you a more intense treatment if you like the warmer, more intense, but this is an option as well. And either in your pan, your kettle, or in your personal steamer, if you were to choose to obtain and use one of those, you can always add a couple drops of eucalyptus or wintergreen oil, something like that, that you would breathe in, which is soothing to the respiratory lining as well. So that's steam inhalation. I'm so used to doing these seminars in person that I just want to ask you, any questions? But so contact us if you do have questions, and we'll see what we can do about answering them. Right, so steam inhalation, I think I covered that. The next treatment that we're going to cover is the throat heating compress. And those of you who have already asked for the handouts and have had those sent to you, there are specific instructions for each of these techniques in that handout. Now, the heating compress consists of applying a cold, wet cloth. Now, I did say heating compress, not heat compress, heating compress. It's applying a cold, wet cloth to an area of the body, and then it has a warming effect because the body then spends its time warming up that area where you applied the cold, wet cloth. There's lots of uses of a heating compress. Your handout has lots of different places on the body that you can apply it for a number of different reasons. We're going to cover one tonight that's especially applicable to our current COVID-19 situation, and that's the throat heating compress. So let me grab my supplies here. And this is another one that you can easily apply to yourself. This is a great one that can be applied to children as well. It's a nice, safe one. The times when you wouldn't want to use this is if you have a patient that's too frail to actually warm up the cold compress, okay? And they would have to be quite medically frail or quite elderly for that to be the case. Okay, you also want to make sure that you don't make this so tight that it interferes with your ability to breathe or to swallow. All right, so we're going to take our cloth. Okay, we have a number of these strips of cloth that we have specifically set aside for whenever we need a throat heating compress. We have them in Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear sizes. And this is my strip that I usually use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip this strip of thin cloth. Mine is flannel, but it can be any kind of thin cloth. And I'm going to squeeze it out just so that it's not dripping. I still want it quite wet with the cold water. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to place this around my neck, around my throat area. And whew, it's cold. All right. And then when I put it on, I do use plastic wrap. Now, you don't have to put plastic around it. In fact, if you were putting it on a young child where suffocation might be a problem, I would not use the plastic. It can be done without the plastic. The plastic will just keep this wet longer, so it will keep it being therapeutic longer. So this is just plastic wrap from my kitchen, folded over. So I'm going to take that and put it around over top. And then, what's that? I lost part of it, he says. Okay. You know, it's just me and my cameraman here at home. This is what happens when you go into a stay-home social isolation order. We do what we need to do for you, just the two of us here. Okay? Usually do it in front of a mirror, so I've got my little mirror here. All right, there's the plastic wrap. And then we want to cover it with a dry cover. We want our cover to be thicker and wider than our underlying wet cloth. Okay, so I've just used a folded hand towel here. So let me use my mirror to get this going. All right, so once I get it wrapped around, and make sure you have it at a comfortable tightness because you're going to want this to stay on for a while. So I pin that, and I usually pin it with 2 pins. I won't take the time right now to put the second pin in, okay? And right now, I still feel coolness against my skin. Remember what we talked about with a brief cold application. This is a brief cold application because it's a limited amount of cold. There isn't any more cold being added to it. What was on that cloth is all the cold that there's going to be. So my body has already figured out. When it first went on, you saw my reaction. It was cold, and my blood vessels underneath had the same reaction. Okay, they closed down. They said, "Whoa!" and they squeezed down to close down tight, so that they weren't giving off the body heat that they want to preserve to this cold cloth. But once the body realized that it was a limited amount of cold, the body figures out, I can warm that little piece of cloth up. So now my blood vessels have already opened up and they are sending more blood flow to my throat area in order to heat up that cloth. Not only are they going to heat up that cloth right now over the next few minutes, but when I treat with a heating compress, I'm going to leave this on, usually for myself, I leave it on overnight. You can also do it during the day and leave it on for a number of hours, but I find this treatment easiest to put on at bedtime and then just go to bed with it. But when I wear it to bed, my body all night long is sending increased circulation to my neck and throat area in order to keep that little cloth warm. By the time I take this off in the morning, that cloth is going to be warm to hot. Okay? If I did not put the plastic over top of it, it would have heated it up so much that it would have completely dried that cloth out by the time you wake up in the morning. That's the reason why I put the plastic on when I can, in order to extend how long it's being therapeutic. Now, as the body is sending circulation there all night long, my throat area, where the virus has set up, where it's caused a sore throat or mucus development, has been getting increased blood flow with increased oxygenation, increased nutrients for healing, increased white blood cells in order to fight off the viruses that are causing the problems in my throat. All night long, there is a war going on in my throat that my body is winning as I am sleeping. So that's the power of this little gem of a hydrotherapy treatment. So in the morning, when I take it off, got to find the end of it. There we go. Okay, this is already warm. This cloth, as I take it off, it's already warm. It's not hot like it would be in the morning, but it is already warm. My body has already been doing what it's supposed to do. Now when I take it off, I want to take a cold washcloth and I want to rub down that area where it had been warmed up all night. Okay, this is part of our alternating hot and cold. We had heat to it all night after putting the cold cloth on, and our body had to keep it warm all night, and now we had cold. And that's the end of that treatment. We'd want to dry it off, and that would be the end of that treatment. Powerful, powerful medicine. God's good gifts of water that are available for our healing. So that's the heating compress to the throat. All right, next fun thing. Another way that we can get heat to our throat in order to promote increased circulation and healing, and also to decrease the survivability of those viruses, to help kill it off, is to gargle with hot water. Okay, you can do it with just hot water, gargle. Okay, the mechanical motion of the gargling will help dislodge some of those viruses, help wash them away, get rid of them, and also the heat will help to kill them. But we can add charcoal to it, and we can make it even more effective. I have activated charcoal powder here. This is the one thing that we're showing tonight that you probably don't have at home. This is hard to find in stores anyways, in a good quantity at a good price. This is a very large container. They are smaller ones. You don't have to buy this much of the activated charcoal. It's not extremely expensive, and it has an indefinite shelf life. I have had this large container for years and years. I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel. I have a new one to replace it that I'm sure will last me probably even more years. I had this one through the years that my children were in the home. We don't need it quite as much in a home with adults as we needed it with kids. But there's, in our full natural remedies seminar, we present a whole session on the uses of charcoal. Tonight we're only going to do this one treatment, but what you need to know about charcoal is that charcoal adsorbs toxins, poisons, bacteria, viruses. It adsorbs them to the surface of the charcoal particle, and then it holds on to them. It doesn't release them. It holds on to them until they're gone out of the body. So that's what we're going to do here, is we're going to get this charcoal in our water that we would then gargle in order to get the charcoal down in contact with the areas of our throat that have these viruses set up in them, in order for the charcoal and the heat and the mechanical action of the water to help us get rid of those viruses in the throat. Now, not only does this help get rid of the viruses, it also gets rid of those byproducts of the inflammation and the infection process, which are what cause the pain. When you have a sore throat, it's because of everything that's being given off as your body's fighting off this enemy. And it's causing inflammation and irritation to the tissues. The charcoal will absorb the byproducts of that inflammation process as well. So we want to get a spoonful. This is not exact science. It really doesn't matter how big your spoonful is. So just make sure that you get yourself a nice big spoonful. Add it to your water. Now I do this in an empty peanut butter jar for a very specific reason. Charcoal powder is very light and it flies into a plume very easily. You don't want to put your charcoal powder in first and then add your water, because you will get a poof of powder as the water hits the charcoal in the jar. So I add the charcoal second, and I even avoid some of the flying charcoal by not stirring it with a spoon. You can stir it with a spoon as well, but I just find it's less messy, easier to use my peanut butter jar and just give it a swirl to mix it. Okay, now you've got yourself some black liquid. Does not look real appetizing, but let me tell you, this is entirely safe for you. Not only is it safe for you, it's good for you. If you swallow some of it, doesn't matter. We teach reasons why you would actually want to drink charcoal water for certain reasons. We're not going to cover that tonight, but so it's safe for you to use. Even if you end up swallowing some of it, that's fine. It'll hang on to those toxins and those viruses until it comes out the other end of your system, so that's fine. So you just take your jar here, take off your lid, and then you would gargle this. It will make a black mess in your sink when you spit it out. Just needs to be cleaned afterwards. The only long-term problem you would have with that charcoal in your sink is if you had a crack or something where some of the particles got lodged in and stained it permanently. But otherwise, it does clean up. Okay. After you gargle, you don't want to drink or swallow any other liquid for a while or eat food. The reason is that after you gargle, there will be particles of charcoal still left in the crevices and folds and along the tissue in your throat. And you want it to sit there a while because it will continue to work to draw viruses, toxins towards it. It will help decrease the pain or discomfort that you may have in your throat, and it will also help get rid of the viruses that are in your throat. So you want those particles to sit there in your throat as long as possible. You will have some grit and some black in your mouth after doing it. Go ahead and take some fresh water, swish your mouth to clean it out and spit it out. Just don't swallow it. Let that charcoal sit there as long as possible. Okay, so that's a lot of fun. And like I said, even if you don't have that in your home, I'm guessing that this is one thing that's fairly readily available online. I have not heard of a run on charcoal because of this pandemic. So I think you're pretty safe in trying to find some of that. But that's just one technique. You don't have to use that one. We're showing you lots of things that you can have in your toolkit by the end of this evening and tomorrow evening. Okay, last night, Dr. Kelly and his wife talked a bit about the benefits of elevating your body temperature in order to fight off infection, to fight off illness. And they talked about the fact that elevated body temperature actually increases our body's ability to function. We mentioned that first. We found out that increased temperature increases all activities in a living organism. So that's the reason why our body develops a fever when we're sick or when we have an infection, because it is increasing the body temperature so that the body is primed to fight off the infection. So there is significant benefit to doing a whole body heating treatment when we have either been exposed to a virus, which for all of us right now in the midst of a pandemic could be any time, right? Or so when we know that we've been exposed to a virus, or when we actually are ill and we want to help the body fight off the illness. So it increases the immune function and prepares every body system to be at its maximum capacity for healing. So it improves the immune function, it improves circulation, and it helps the body get rid of toxins out of the body. The three things that are most important for healing from a viral illness. So Dr. Kelly talked last night about how he uses his shower as hydrotherapy. And normally, when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, I will, after finishing bathing, I will turn the water temperature up a little bit right at the end, just to get me toasty, toasty, toasty. And then I'll turn the water to cool or cold, depending on how adventurous I'm feeling that day, or also how threatened I think my immune system is that day. And just end my shower with that about 30 seconds of that cold, and then dry off. However, since we're in a pandemic, I am doing every shower 3 repetitions, alternating hot and cold. I will do that. We did that over the last couple weeks while we were had some illness going on in our house, and we are continuing to do it because we don't know whether we have had or been exposed to the COVID-19 or not, and so we are going to continue to do everything that we can with our daily shower. When we were actually sick and we knew that we were sick, we did this more than once a day. And I encourage you, do it more than once a day if you can. Every time you do it, it's going to boost your immune function. So I'm not going to take you into my shower, so I brought my shower to you. And just so that I can kind of talk you through what I generally do in the shower. So I will finish my bathing, wash my hair, wash my body with the warm water. And as I'm getting to the end of that, I will turn the water temperature up like I normally do, get a little more toasty. Before you start doing alternating hot and cold with a shower, you want to make sure that your entire body, including your feet, are warm. You don't want any of your body to still be cold or cool and take the risk of chilling. So you want everything to be warmed up. And at the end of the shower, like I said, I turn up the temperature to toasty. And for a couple minutes, make sure I'm good and warm. Then I turn it to cool. Okay, usually I still have this hanging up in the shower, and so I kind of, get every part of my body turn around. If you don't like the idea of cold hitting you, the easiest place to have it hit you first is your hands and your face. That's the part of your body that's exposed on a regular basis to the coldest air. And so you can put your hands up by your face, and you can let it hit you on the face and the hands first, and then run down on the rest of your body. That makes it a little more tolerable for those of you who just are averse to cold. I love warmth, okay? So cold is not my favorite thing either. But over the past week, as I've been doing this 3 repetitions with every shower, let me tell you, I've been enjoying the cold more and more. So after that first repetition with cold, 30 seconds or so, I turn it back to hot. And this time I make it even a little hotter. Here's where for me I usually take down my handheld shower because I like it better. If you have a handheld shower, you may enjoy that. If you don't, then you just do it with it still up there. But I find that I can take hotter temperatures on my chest and my throat area if I take this down and bring it close. And it uses less hot water too because it's not cooling as it falls from the shower. So I spray the water over top of my throat and upper chest area. Let it run down, of course. I also occasionally take it onto my upper back as well. Want to get a lot of heat going on there. And then after about 2 or 3 minutes, up to 5 minutes. But if you've got this really toasty, you're going to find that 2 to 3 minutes is probably plenty for you. Then you're going to want to go ahead and turn it to cold. And this time you can probably tolerate it colder than you did the first time. So while it's running cold on here, it's been pretty hot, so cold actually feels a little bit of a relief. Also get it on the back, okay? And I actually find that by this time I'm probably perspiring a little bit, so it actually feels good for me to spray my face, the rest of my body briefly, okay? So I'm getting about 20 to 40 seconds of cold, and then I move it back to hot. Hot again, this time a little bit hotter than previously, for 2 to 5 minutes again on hot. Some on the upper back as well. If you've got it hanging in the shower, you're just going to do some turning, okay? Let it run over the body. And then back to cold again for 20 to 40 seconds at the end. And the very last round, I want to make sure, because it feels good, I get my face, I get my entire body, okay? Get my back, and I also, this is one of my favorite parts. I've always liked this. I don't know why it feels so good at the end, but I like to get the bottom of my feet, okay? And then turn off the shower, grab a towel, dry yourself off briskly. Don't let yourself get chilled. Get into warm clothing right away. You don't want to walk across a bare, cold floor on rugs or carpeting or with stocking feet or slippers is a good idea, but not across linoleum, tile, or wood with your bare feet, because that decreases the effectiveness. After doing a shower like that as a treatment, you're going to want to lay down and rest for 30 to 60 minutes. This is when the body is doing its powerful work. This is where the body is making and releasing those red blood cells, those white blood cells. This is where the body is being primed for action, for fighting disease. This is where you get the huge benefit. Now, if I were leaving the house to go to work, I would still, during this pandemic or during any time when infection was at a high risk, I would still do those 3 repetitions at the end of my shower. And I would still go ahead and just get dressed and go on to work. I would still get some benefit. But to get maximum benefit, you're going to want to rest. So it might be a good idea to maybe do it again at bedtime before you go to bed. So this is a technique that can be used for prevention right now before you're infected, or definitely it can be used multiple times throughout the day if you do contract any illness, whether it's flu, whether it's COVID-19, whether it's a cold, any of those kind of illnesses. This is powerful medicine that you can use. But what about a person who can't tolerate? There are people who shouldn't do this kind of shower. Those with significant cardiac problems, those with very mild cardiac problems can check with their doctors and see if this is okay for them to do. But those with more severe cardiac problems should not put that kind of demand as far as shift in blood flow on their heart. So what about someone who has challenges with doing the shower? They can't stand in the shower, or they have got cardiac problems, or for some reason they can't tolerate it. We're going to show you an alternative treatment that you can do for those kind of individuals. And it's called our hot foot bath. This again is on your handout. And there are a number of reasons to use the hot foot bath. And what you do with the hot foot bath is going to vary a little bit depending on the purpose. But our purpose that we're showing you tonight is to heat up the body, increase the body temperature in order to get ready for fighting illness, or else if you're already sick, to help the body fight illness. So we've got our chair set up here. We've got a blanket and a sheet on our chair. And we're going to have our patient sit down in the chair. There's a basin of hot water there. And we're going to have our patient go ahead and put their feet in the basin of hot water. Now, he filled it himself, so how's the temperature? Too hot. Okay. we can help him with that because we have a bucket of ice water here, right? So we can help. See if that's any better. Good? Still a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit.
Watch your patient's face. It tells you an awful lot about what's going on. Still a little toasty? He's not sure. So we give him just a tad more when he's not sure. Okay, and then we're going to get him wrapped up here. After we get him wrapped up while he's sitting there, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the precautions with this treatment. So we want to wrap up him, and we want to wrap up the basin, because we want to keep all of the heat that's coming off of that hot foot bath, we want to keep it inside our little cocoon here where it will warm him up. Now, normally our patient would not be fully clothed. You want your patient to be minimally clothed for this treatment. So down to even just underwear, a bathing suit, whatever works for modesty, depending on your relationship to your patient. So I have a wool blanket here. If you have a wool blanket, that works nicely. If you don't, just use any blanket that will hold in the heat. So we have our hot foot bath, and we've got him wrapped up in there. Okay? One of the important things with any of these treatments that we do, and I like to do this especially, of course, I'm always talking to the Lord when I'm self-treating, but when I'm actually treating somebody else, I like to pray for them. I want to ask the great physician's participation in our treatment. Now, we're not going to leave him in here for a full treatment, but you know what? I'm going to ask the Lord for whatever benefit the Lord's going to give him in our short little demonstration here tonight to give it to him. So I'm going to pray for him. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for Mike, and I want to ask that you bless him. Lord, I ask that you continue to bring healing to him as he recovers from a recent illness. And Lord, you've given us a good gift of water, and you've given us information and understanding about how to use it, and we're grateful for it. And so I'm just asking that tonight, that as we demonstrate this treatment, that you will use it to bring healing to Mike's body. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay, so we're going to leave him wrapped up in here, and we want to keep that hot foot bath hot. And so we will show you in a few minutes how to add hot water to the foot bath in order to keep it hot. And we're also going to monitor him to see once he starts heating up and perspiring, then we're going to want to keep his head cold. But let's talk about precautions for this treatment. You want to be careful if someone has numbness at all in their feet. You want to use mild heat only. You want to make sure that it's not going to burn them. And since they can't tell how hot it is, you have to use just mild heat for this. So use care. Either don't do it with someone with numbness or be very, very careful. You don't want to use the hot foot bath with someone who has peripheral vascular disease in the legs. You don't want to use it with open sores. And with someone who has diabetes, you can use it with care. When we have someone with diabetes, we don't want to use water that's above 102 degrees. With someone without diabetes, we can go above that. As long as they have good sensation, we can go as hot as they tolerate. But for someone with diabetes, you want to limit it to 102 degrees. And so you can use either a bath thermometer, or here's just a kitchen quick read thermometer that you can use to monitor your water temperature and make sure that you do not exceed 102 degrees for diabetics. Okay? So those are the treatment precautions. So we have our patient there, and how long do we want to leave them in this treatment? You can leave them in this treatment anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, Because we're using this one to try and elevate the body temperature, you're probably going to want to go the full 30 minutes on this particular treatment for battling viral disease. Now, if someone thinks that they may be coming down with a cold or a flu or some kind of respiratory infection, this is a treatment that can be done to either halt it or shorten the illness. If they already have illness, if they can tolerate one of the more aggressive forms of treatment, I prefer to use that. But in the case of someone who cannot tolerate because of age or medical status, some of the more aggressive forms of treatment, this would be the next option. Now, I do have to give you a disclaimer here. I'm going to grab supplies over here. The CDC's current recommendations for a family member or someone in the same household as you that has COVID-19 is for them to quarantine themselves in a room separate from the rest of the household members. Okay? So in that kind of case, providing this treatment for someone, being in this close contact with them, is not within the CDC's current guidelines. You're going to have to assess your situation. What they would recommend is that at least the patient is masked when they're out around other household members, or that both of you are masked. If you have a mask at home, bless you, you have more than most of us have. And so you would have to make some decisions whether having them do a self-treatment, and we're going to talk about some more self-treatments tomorrow night as well, is a better idea, or whether you feel like all of you have been exposed already. I know that when we were ill over our recent illnesses, we both came down with it about the same time. So it didn't matter whether it was COVID-19 or whether it wasn't, because we both had it anyways. And so we didn't feel like we needed to quarantine from each other. So just so you are aware of what the CDC's guidelines is, I don't want to be encouraging you to do anything that's outside of the CDC guidelines at this point in time. So we want to keep this water in the foot bath hot throughout the treatment. So as it cools and as he gets used to the increased temperature, he'll be able to tolerate hotter and hotter water in that foot bath. So we're going to take some of our hot water from our tea kettle here. And we're going to add it to the foot bath so that I can show you how to do that. Yeah, that'll be toasty. Let's see, probably this side will be better for the camera. Okay, so we're going to open up the foot bath area, hopefully without getting our sheet or blanket in the water, but it happens sometimes. If it does, it happens. All right, so what he's going to do is you're going to have your patient spread their feet as far apart as they can in the basin so that you have room in between their feet to add the water without the water coming in contact with them before you have an opportunity to mix it. The other thing is you're going to put your hand in the water so that the water touches your hand before it touches their feet, so you know how hot it's getting. You don't want to burn them, but you do want to get the water up as hot as you can. Okay. So I'm adding the water a little bit at a time. It hits my hand before it hits his feet, and I'm stirring it up to mix it up so we don't have hot spots and cool spots. And he's going to tell me when it's getting hot enough. And I'm adding it a little fast here because I'm discovering that my water here is only a little bit hotter than what's already in there. If it was significantly hotter, I'd be adding it a little bit more slowly. Okay, we're going to give him all of what we have there. You're still okay, right? Yep. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and he could have taken more, and if that was the case, normally doing a full treatment, I would go ahead and get more and continue to add it. But as you keep adding water, you're going to, at some point in time, have to take out some water because it's going to be getting too full. So I like my little narrow pitcher here because it fits down in between feet in these basins. So this is a pitcher that's kept with my hydrotherapy supplies. And I just put that into the basin, scoop some of the water out, have a towel so that I don't drip, and remove some of the water. Oftentimes I will do that before I add water so that I have room to add more water. And then we would cover him back up, cover up the basin, and let him continue and come back frequently to refresh that water to keep it as warm as he can tolerate. Okay? So during the treatment, once he starts perspiring, once he starts getting hot, and sometimes you can feel their forehead and feel that they're starting to get a little wet, a little moist, or else they will tell you that they're starting to feel hot. At that point in time, we want to keep the head cool. So we will take our washcloth from the cold water, and I'm not going to do them because I don't have him hot yet. And this doesn't feel good when you're not hot. It does feel good when you are hot, okay? So we could put this cloth on the forehead. Okay? Different people, when they start getting toasty and when they start getting warm, like it different places. So the forehead is an option. Sometimes draping it over the top of the head feels good to people. Sometimes, usually not in this treatment, but some other heat treatments, when they get hot enough, this one's probably not going to get him that hot. Sometimes we have a cloth on the head, and also sometimes they like cold, wet cloth dabbing their face as well. This is your opportunity to be a blessing to someone when you're giving them a treatment like this. Okay, ministering, serving, and being a blessing. And sometimes it feels good to them to have a cold, either a washcloth or a cold, wet hand towel around the neck to keep them cool as well. Okay, so just kind of figure out what feels good to the person that you're treating and keep their head cool. During these heating treatments, we want the body to heat up, but we want to keep the head cool. All right, let me show you how to finish a treatment. Anything else I didn't tell them about the treatment?
I don't think so.
Okay. So to finish the treatment, we're going to finish with cold. Just about all of these hydrotherapy treatments finish with cold. I have a towel someplace. So I'm going to move the basin over to the side towards me. I'm going to put a towel over here for him to put his feet on, and then we're going to end with cold. Got my bucket with my ice water. Still has ice cubes in it. I'm going to need to slide this away, and then he's going to hold his feet up, toes up in the air, and I'm going to pour cold water over the tops and the bottoms of his feet. Sometimes stray ice cubes escape. Okay, and then he's going to right away go ahead and put his feet over on the towel. We don't want any chilling of any body parts. Okay. Chilled body parts decrease the immune function in the body. We're trying to improve it, and so we want to make sure that he gets nice and dry here. And then he's going to want to go, if he's been perspiring, he's going to dry off his body, put on dry clothes, and he's going to put on socks and slippers before he walks across a bare floor. Okay? So that is the hot foot bath. You can take that towel with you. Make sure your feet are nice and dry. And I so want to ask you folks, do you have any questions? I wish you could talk back to me. Makes it much easier for me to present, but I appreciate you, those of you who are watching, and I'm praying that this is being beneficial to you. All right, so that's the last of the treatment, the hydrotherapy treatments that we're going to show you for tonight. Tomorrow night, we will go ahead and have a video presentation for you again, same places. on Facebook and on YouTube. And tomorrow night we're going to talk a little bit more about the Spanish flu epidemic in 1918 and some of the lessons that we learned from that about hydrotherapy and how powerful it is during epidemics, pandemics. We're going to specifically look at a hydrotherapy treatment that was used with great success during the Spanish flu epidemic, and that is full body fomentations. That's probably the most powerful hydrotherapy treatment that I know how to do, that I'm familiar with. And so this is something that if you have illness going on, especially at this time when the potential for the illness to turn very, very serious, as we know, this is a time, if anyone was sick in my household at this point in history, I would be doing this treatment on them. In fact, our supplies are sitting out in the other room because last week I did do this treatment on my husband several times. This is a place where we can take the responsibility. So you're going to want to come back tomorrow night. We're going to show you how to do that treatment on somebody else, and then we're going to talk about if you're alone or if you don't have someone to do the treatment for you, how you can mimic that treatment yourself. Okay? Before you go tonight, I want to pray for you one more time. Heavenly Father, Lord, I want to ask you to bless those who are watching. Lord, those who are watching during the time when we're in the midst of this pandemic, Lord, I pray that you will draw very close to them. I pray that you will give them peace. I pray that you will give them protection. And most of all, I pray that you will give them your presence no matter what circumstances they walk through. Lord, whether we walk through health throughout this pandemic, whether we walk through illness, Lord, I pray that you will be with us. And whether we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we know that you're there. You will be there with us as well. And we claim that promise, we trust in you, and we find our peace in that. Lord, bless these people, I pray, in Jesus' name. Amen.